Welcome, everybody. I think today is a special day, and it's a day for all of us to come together and celebrate. I think some interesting developments in our efforts to outlaw this terrible practice. Many of you have become leaders and advocates in this effort because you possess the skills and the resources and the passion to try to put an end to horse slaughter and animal abuse. And I include in that group our host today, Susan Wagner, who I've known for about 15 years and have seen her take this farm and turn it into a sanctuary that provides a quality of life for its inhabitants that's unparalleled. And I've seen Susan and Karen and the team here, Manny and Michelle and the others, develop a wonderful education program where we've had open days and we've had visits from schools as far south as the Lower East Side of New York. I've seen Susan engaged in the political process, which is so much a part of what we're trying to get done here, or so much of a necessity to be so engaged. I've seen Susan engage with the law enforcement people and prosecutors in trying to assist them in the horse abuse cases. I've seen her go undercover at auctions, and I've seen her take her checkbook with her to these auctions, and to the extent that she has a balance in her bank account, buy those horses that she can save. And sadly, I've also seen her cry at times when we lose one of the members of the family here, regardless of age or infirmity. But I know her, and I know she's always been able to get herself right back on her feet and move forward. So it's my great pleasure to introduce Susan Wagner.
Thank you and welcome. What a great group of people. I have to say how proud I am to have the greatest experts, equine experts in the country assembled here today. But we're here not just because of the people who are here. We're here because we're at a crossroads. This country's at a crossroads. And we've got to try to do everything we can to make sure that horse slaughter doesn't take root here again. So these speeches will be shown on the internet, and we hope that people from all across the country, tens of thousands of people, will get to benefit from the words that these experts have to say. And all I can say is I thank you guys for being here. The speakers that we have, I want to thank, first of all of them for coming, but I also want to thank two lawmakers from here, Senator Kathy Marchione, who has become the Senate Speaker of the new legislation in New York to ban the slaughter of horses from this state for human consumption. And it is so important that we do it because we are one of the avenues into Canada. So trucks from other states come through here. They use our state to deliver these horses to Canada. It's absolutely unconscionable. We need to stop it. Assemblyman Jim Tedisco, you know, he's probably got the greatest reputation in the state for helping animals. He is a great advocate. We are so honored for you to be here to be our keynote speaker. So we are running a little bit late. I don't want to take up a lot of time, and I just want to get started with our keynote speaker. It's my honor to introduce Assemblyman Jim Tedisco.
Thank you so much, Susan. The Lord has given us a beautiful day today, hasn't He? For a beautiful and wonderful facility, for a beautiful, important, and wonderful cause. And that is the one myself, Kathy, and many of our colleagues, and all of you are working hard towards and fighting for. And that's to ban the slaughter of these beautiful equine animals, these beautiful horses. Myself and Senator Marchione are very proud to carry that bill. And we were going to try to take credit for the weather. But, you know, if the politicians were in charge of the weather, we'd probably have hurricanes every day. So we're just going to stick to trying to pass this bill to ban the slaughter of animals. And let me apologize, Susan, for the being a little bit late. My driver, my staff guy, and to indicate how much respect I have for animals. I only hire people who have names that relate to animals. And Dan, which is his first name, has a GPS. There's always something positive about getting lost. And now we know where the Chatham Little League fields are. We saw a lot of baseball players, but not many horses over there. But Dan's mom, she tells me, was going to name him in terms of his first name. No, because his last name is, well, his full name is Dan Bull. So she was going to say, when somebody asks your name, you could say, no bull. And we like to kid Dan and say that you mess with the bull, you get the horns. So, but he does a tremendous amount of work on behalf of a lot of our animal advocacy bills. So we're very appreciative of him and our entire staff. And I know Kathy has a great staff too who works very hard on those issues. The first thing I want to do is say I'm not an expert in this area. But what I am an expert in, if you know anything about me, I think I am an expert in, and that is marketing and getting things done when they seem to be impossible in the New York State Legislature. I don't know if you know the numbers on my side of the aisle, but I'm what you'd call in the minority a little bit. There's 108 on the other side and 42 members of my affiliation. But I have to tell you, in the third year, and by the way, we brought some of the flyers, and I hope you will pick one up. This is the third year we've made history, because this will be the third year in the history of New York State that we have an Animal Advocacy Day. Yeah. And I can tell you, I hope by that day, at least in one of the houses, maybe both of the houses, and the governor has signed the bill to ban the slaughter of horses in New York State. But if not, thank you. But if not, you can rest assured the hundreds of people who will be there will understand we have to lobby on that day, our legislators, for this particular bill. And I'll talk about the reasons why it's not an easy lift. It's probably going to be a heavy lift, and I'll give you the information as to why. I'm not an expert, but I do appreciate so many of the experts here, but more importantly, the volunteers who are here, and through your experience, are experts in this particular area. And our job is going to use your expertise, your efforts, and I want to talk to you a little bit about how you and us can partner together with a lot of the most important aspects of this representative democracy to get this piece of legislation done. But before I do that, I have to do something for one of the premier experts. Susan, would you please come up here? And Senator, would you come up here too, because this is sponsored by Senator Marchione and myself. This is a New York State Assembly citation. Now, we couldn't come here today to this unbelievable, beautiful facility and have the leader who leads all of you, and you're all leaders here. Susan's the main leader. We had her out at a press conference last week at the Old Friends at Cabin Creek, and she did a beautiful job defending our bill to ban the slaughter of horses. And I'd just like to read this, if I could. Whereas companion animals, such as horses, are entrusted to our care, and these voiceless creatures depend on us for sustenance, shelter, care, and companionship, and reward us in return with their devotion and loyalty. And whereas one such advocate is Susan Wagner, who has led to the rescue of thousands of horses since 1996 as president of Equine Advocates, and has made it her mission to rescue, protect, and prevent the abuse and slaughter of horses through education, investigation, rescue operations, and has established the 140 acre Equine Advocates Rescue and Sanctuary as a place for horses to live out their lives naturally and keep them safe from abuse or slaughter, and has developed effective advocacy and educational tools through the Humane Equine Education Center, which affects positive, lasting changes for the better treatment and protection of horses. Now therefore be it resolved that the citizens of the state of New York offer praise, admiration, and heartfelt appreciation to Susan Wagner, President of Equine Advocates, and recognize her compassionate commitment on behalf of thousands of horses and animal advocates in our community. Signed, James Tedisco, Assemblyman, and Kathy Marchione, Senator. You deserve it. Dan No Bull's going to get the evidence. Hold that up so long.
Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Thank you. That was a very nice introduction you gave to me earlier, but I'm reminded of what Mark Twain said. He said, it's better to not be given honors, even though you deserve them, than to be given honors when you don't deserve them. So I think I'm somewhere in the middle on that deserving thing. You are on the top on that deserving thing with all these advocates. I'm not going to take up 40 minutes because I'm sure you don't want to listen to a politician talk for 40 minutes. You want to hear the experts. And I learned that way back. I was full of vim and vigor when I first got elected to the New York State Assembly. And some people think I'm still full of vim and vigor and vinegar. But I was speaking to a group about this size, and it was a group of senior citizens. One of the first speeches I ever made when I got elected to the Assembly. And in the middle of my speech, in the middle it was about 45 minutes. That was the middle of the speech at that time. I had a lot to say. A fella stood up in the middle, one of the siegers. He started walking towards the exit. And at that time, I said, hey, sir, where are you going? He turned around and looked at me. He said, I'm going to get a haircut. I said, why didn't you get a haircut before you came to hear me speak? He said, I didn't need a haircut before I came to hear you speak. So I see everybody's got a nice head of hair, and you will not need a haircut when I'm done. Well, okay, he will never need a haircut. That's what I like. Forget the price of gas. $20 for a haircut, you're saving a lot of money. I like that. I want to tell you a little bit about my philosophy and why I think we can partner together in how we can get this done. 3 things are important, I think. 1, you should understand this, and I think sometimes this gets lost. The most powerful elements in our representative democracy are not governors, are not presidents, are not assembly members, are not senators. The most powerful element, and sometimes we get beaten down so much, are all of us in this room who are the voters and the taxpayers of New York State. When you harness yourself on an issue that has character, content, and quality, using reason, logic, and fact, and that's the way I like to get things done. We have on our side the character, content, quality of our ID, and reason, logic, and fact. And those are the tools we have to use. So we have to get it in our mindset, and we have to educate other people to understand you do have power. Because a lot of people say, hey, forget about that government. I'm not going to call my legislators. I'm not going to write the governor. Well, it does make a difference. Things do get done. And I'll talk a little bit about Buster's bill, which did get done when nobody thought it could get done. And a lot of people were advocating against it for some other reasons than care and concern for the torture of animals and cruelty to animals. Secondly, I think the role of government is to be there to be used as a tool. So everybody in this room and all the citizens we represent can be everything they can be with the God-given talents we've been given. And then kind of get out of their way. Now the caveat to that is that there are people, and we're a compassionate society, we should be a compassionate government. Individuals who through no fault of their own and other parts of our family, which we'll talk about today, who have obstacles before them, which they'll have for the rest of their lives. We have an obligation to care for them, to provide the programs for them. That's what government should be all about. So, yeah, we're a tool, but for some, the tool has to be consistent and stay there. And then we have to be a voice for every single part of the family of New York as a government, and really as responsible citizens. Now, not only a voice for the very powerful who are tuned in, who have connections, but the very weakest voices. What you saw at the Capitol with a budget we did this year, and Kathy and I were very concerned about that, is we reduced $90 million from the developmentally disabled in our community on a $135 billion budget to send $425 million of tax credits to the rich and poor, rich and prosperous and famous from Beverly Hills. That was a step backwards. We didn't support that. We had amendments to try to eliminate that. But we have an obligation to speak for all those voices. Now look, I can't communicate with a horse. Probably, Susan, you can. I can't communicate with a dog, a cat, a chicken, a cow. I can't communicate with any animal. We don't speak their language. They don't have any voice. So this is not a case of we're standing up for our equine friends and animals and horses because their voice is small. They have no voice. We have to be their voice. But I'll tell you what we can do. We can see. We can see compassion. We can see companionship. We can see programs that they provide for us for rehabilitation. We talked about that at the press conference last week. For veterans, for the handicapped, prison programs that they're using our horses for that actually change the life of individuals. The patriotism, the way they built this country. The other day I helped clean up the canal in my district in Clifton Park. That canal was built with the help of horses, trying to move those barges down there and dig it up and make it possible for us to move our economy. They have so much to offer to change our quality of life and help our quality of life. Now, I learned very early on, and I'll tell you what that experience was. You may not know this, but I've been in the Assembly quite a while. In fact, I served with Mr. Cuomo as governor, not Andrew Cuomo. I served with Mario Cuomo. Now, Andrew Cuomo's got 4 daughters, I think. If I start to serve with one of those daughters, it will be time to retire, okay? Because I know I've been there too long. But let me tell you a story about one of the first roles I had as an elected official. It was the chairman of a task force on child abduction and missing children. I traveled all across the state of New York, having hearings. I even had abductors interview with me, and the parents and the family and the children. Did a lot of legislation. But one day, and one of the things I learned is that immediacy is so important when there's a missing person. I'm fortunate, but unfortunate in one way, to have Doug and Mary Lyle in my district who live out in Saratoga County. Their daughter, Suzanne Lyle, has been missing for about 12 years now from Albany State. She was abducted. And they're individuals who've turned a real tragedy into something so positive. They've worked so hard for families across the state to develop programs and legislation. But we learned that immediacy is important when someone goes missing, because you can be in another country in a matter of hours. You can be in Buffalo if you're abducted from the capital region or Syracuse. I was getting on the thruway one day, and when I got on the thruway, in fact, I just pulled these out of my wallet. I had them in my wallet for about 20 years. Do you ever remember seeing thruway toll tickets that look like that? That's the way those thruway. I've had this in my wallet for 20 or 25 years. And on the backs of these, I turned around and said something about buckle up your seatbelt, and it had another message on there. And all of a sudden, I pulled my car and I go, wow, we could be the first state in the nation to use our entire transportation system to put the pictures of missing children and missing persons on the back of thruway toll tickets. Because if you're in Albany and you see a ticket and you go out to Buffalo, you know, maybe you're in Buffalo, you're traveling across the state and you've got identification. I was only there 2 years or 3 years when I got that position to be the chairman of the task force on child. I got to my office, I called the governor's office, I said, look, and I never thought I'd get a response. I talked to a staff person. I got an idea. Why don't we put the pictures of missing children and persons on thruway toll tickets? And then we could have a better chance to track them down. We could be the first state in the nation. Never thought I'd get a response. An hour later, I get a call in my office, sophomore elected official. Governor Cuomo wants to meet you on exit 23 tomorrow. We're starting to print the tickets. We're going to put the picture of the first missing person on it. And here's this little girl who was the first picture of missing person. And by the way, we found her because of this throughway toll ticket. And then, I haven't shown this to Andrew yet, but at some point I want to show it to him. I also carry this in my wallet. That's a picture of me as a young man with Mario Cuomo at the exit 23 with the picture of that little girl on the throughway toll ticket. I was in awe when Mario Cuomo walked up and came out to that exit and stood next to me, and we had a press conference together. But here's the point I want to make. After I got all done, I said, Governor, thanks so much for being here. You made history. We're the first state in the nation to have it. Why'd you do it? And he said, Jim, you're a different affiliation from me. You're way into the minority. It's going to be tough for you to get things passed. This is something we can do, though. But it's the character, content, and quality, what I mentioned earlier, of an idea that matters. Not where it emanates from. And it's the power of the character, content, and quality. Then he said something I'll never forget, which is why I think I'm a fairly good marketer of ideas. And I can get things done. And Kathy's very good at this also. I won't say she learned from me because she was a county clerk and she was getting it done there when she was a county clerk for many years. And that's a tough job also. He said, Jim, for a politician, if we don't blow our own horn, there's never any music, he said to me. And I looked at him and I thought about what he was saying. And what he really meant, if we don't take an idea, could be a great idea, and get it out to the public, to the people who are most powerful in our representative democracy, to the media, to have reason, logic, and fact behind it. If we don't stand up and blow our horn as animal advocates for this bill and others, it's not going to happen. You know, we could sit in this room and pat ourselves on the back. We got a great idea. These are all the reasons why it's going to happen. This is great. We're getting some attention here, but we've got to continue to do that because we have a responsibility to blow our horn now for equine animals and for horses and to ban the slaughter of those horses. And that's what it's going to take. An example, who would have ever thought that a small little kitten named Buster, doused with kerosene 12 years ago, lit on fire, a case of abuse, would bring to their knees governors, speakers, the most powerful elected officials, because it took on a life of its own. It happened to take place in my district. And I'll tell you, I've gotten calls on a tremendous number of issues, very important issues. I never got as many calls on an issue than have you found the person who lit that cat on fire, Assemblyman? You have to find that. So I called the chief of police and I said, are you investigating this? People are outraged by this. He goes, we are, but we can't do much about it. I go, why? It's a misdemeanor, he said to me. I go, low-level crime? Yeah, we can't spend time investigating on misdemeanors. Should it be a felony? Absolutely. Why? Check with the FBI. It's a bridge crime. Now, he wasn't talking about the other aspects which we know exist and that they give us unconditional love, our pets. They're great companions for us. My goodness, when they went down into that bunker to get Osama bin Laden, the dogs went in first. They actually have a little dog now, a service dog, which can check for someone who has diabetes if they're low on their insulin level. Can register for that person, let them know you're low on the insulin level. We just talked about the horses and the equine programs they provide for rehabilitation of the developmentally disabled. It's a bridge crime though. I'll give you the names. Son of Sam, Bundy, Dahmer, the Columbine kids. Go back to any serial murder, have a history of abusing animals. I had to make the case because, I'll be honest with you, and this is the case we have to make also. The Farm Bureau, and look, they're the #1 industry, agriculture. Farming's tremendous. I love our farms. We're supportive of farms. There's nobody who's probably more supportive of our farms than the two elected officials you see here. We understand the importance of them. But they were concerned about making it a felony. And we were one of the first states in the nation to make that a felony for animal abuse and cruelty. It's not a perfect law, We couldn't get a perfect law passed, and there probably is no perfect law. Because what happens with some of these DAs, they say, when you tied that dog to when they tied that dog to the tree and shot it 5 times in the head, I don't read that in your bill. Well, in my bill, it doesn't say bring an animal up in an airplane and drop him out and kill him, and that's cruelty. Or tie a cat to the back of your car and drag it, and that's... You cannot put every single act of cruelty in a bill to make it a felony. But it's like pornography. I think you know it when you see it. You know, pretty much. And that's a part of the educational aspect. It's not only educating the public to stand up and be there at Animal Advocacy Day. It's the law enforcement. It's our DAs. It's the sheriffs. It's the police. It's the judicial system. And we don't have a real good process to get them to understand the essence of what this law is all about, this felony law. And we have to continue, but we've come 1,000,000 miles, but we still have 1,000,000 miles to go. Well, that little cat, it wasn't me. It was the people of New York State who, when they found out what it was all about, did hundreds of thousands of signatures on petitions. Hundreds of thousands. They brought them to the Capitol. They called their legislators. I mean, I can't impact a lot of legislation in your district. Only you can. Only the people of that district, for the most part. But they did so. And to such an extent that the Speaker had to bring us back in a special session to pass that particular bill, Buster's Law, to make it a felony. And the little cat, and the character and content quality of that idea, of what it says about a society, and what this says about a society. And let me tell you, we're battling the same elements now, but we have the same argument. Dogs, cats, companion pets, but the same argument holds up for our horses. They are tremendous companions. They're majestic. They're recreational. And the thoroughbred track in our district in Saratoga really count on those beautiful horses. And what they did to that horse, Ferdinand, you're probably familiar with. A champion. Sell him to China or Japan for meat, for consumption by people. Totally unacceptable and inappropriate. But we have not only that argument, that they're tremendous companions, we have the argument of the connection, and Susan and the experts will explain it better than I can, of the chemicals they ingest, which can treat them pretty good because they're large animals. We can ingest those. It's a danger to us. But to begin with, we shouldn't be breeding horses to eat, and we shouldn't be eating horse meat. They're not like other animals. So I guess what I'm saying to you is, you're the experts, you're the volunteers, you're the most important, powerful force in this representative democracy. Join me, join Senator Marchione, which is a tremendous fighter for you, by the way. She's 100% in support of this bill. She had the guts and the courage to carry it. But understand this. They've already come to us and said, well, look, what are we going to do with the carcasses? It costs us money to bury the carcass. Well, they bury cow carcasses already. I mean, this is an excuse, but guess what? We're thinking about legislation to even mitigate some of these things. We have talked about, well, farmers, you're concerned about burying the carcass. How about if we give you a tax credit for burying the carcass, the cost of burying the carcass? Well, then they said, oh, you know, they're kind of surprised. When we took care of that argument, they said, oh, but, you know, maybe we can't afford just to have the animal. And it hasn't reached its end of its life, but we can't afford to have it, so we've got to send it to slaughter. How about rescue groups? How about if we pass a bill that has a tax checkoff to give to rescue groups like Susan Wagner and you work for over here? A tax checkoff. We have a lot of tax checkoffs where you donate money when you put in your tax. I bet you there's a tremendous number of people who would want to save horses from being slaughtered and sent to rescue groups. But there's one thing we can't provide for them legislatively. Money. Okay? Money. They want to slaughter horses to sell them to Mexico and Canada. It's not about the cost of that to bury them sometimes. It's not about giving them to rescue groups. They actually, some of these people want to breed horses to sell it for meat, and you know, it can cross over, it can come to America, but it has a negative impact. But we can overcome that with the character, content, and quality of our ideas, and reason, logic, and fact, because we've done it before. Because a lot of people like animal dog fighting, and they were making a lot of money of it. But we got a bill passed to penalize dog fighting in New York State. And a lot of people like to go gamble on it and make money. But we got a bill passed to penalize and make it illegal to go to animal fighting. And a lot of people like to provide the instruments to train dogs to fight. But we got a bill passed that says it's illegal to have that type of equipment. So you can overcome that. We can overcome that. We can do that by, as Mario Cuomo said, we have to blow our own horn as animal advocates, as horse advocates, and we have to ban the slaughter of horses in New York State. And I just close by saying this. Myself and Kathy won't be doing it. You will be doing it with the rest of the public. The most powerful voices in the state will be doing it because you understand what a compassionate and caring society should be all about. And it certainly should be all about respecting the dignity of our horses and banning the slaughter of them in New York State. Thank you and God bless you.
Thank you so much. Now I'd like to present Senator Kathy Marchione, who is the Senate sponsor of the legislation to ban the slaughter of New York horses.
Thank you so much. It's a real pleasure for me to join my friend and really a true champion and advocate for animals. And I was thrilled when Jim called and said, would you like to join with me in protection of horses and ban horse slaughtering. And I did some review. That's an important thing for any legislator to do, whether or not you want to join on legislation. And certainly when I started that review, I was shocked and appalled at what I saw. You know, in 2010, and you probably know more than what I know, as Jim said, I'm not an expert on this issue either, but 137,984 horses in 2010 being exported to Canada for slaughter. The vast majority of those horses were intended for human consumption. And it's unconscionable from where I'm standing to believe that it's okay to slaughter horses and eat them with the chemicals that are in them. I mean, we don't feed our babies and our children in this country horse meat that's contaminated. They actually have in Japan on the meat a label that says not for pregnant women. Well, why would that be? You know, horses are injected not to become pregnant. So that chemical is in their body. And yet people abroad are eating this. And to me, it's like as close to modern day barbarianism as we can imagine. And I certainly think it needs to stop. It's not only the cruelty at the slaughterhouse, but it's the traveling that the horse has to endure before they get slaughtered. And you know, it's specifically illegal in New York State to slaughter horses for cat and dog food, but yet it's happening for human consumption. I just, why on earth anyone would ever allow New York State horses to be slaughtered is just unbelievable to me. It raises serious concerns for health and safety, and you know, as Jim talked, it is truly up to everyone in this room. I can cite examples of moving the New York State legislature and the governor as a county clerk. You know, as a county clerk, we stood up on 3 different occasions, and on 3 different occasions, not even being in the legislature, we effected change. One of them, if you remember, was the license plate issue when our government thought that everyone needed new license plates. Everyone didn't need new license plate. It was a money grab from New York State because they needed money. And the county clerk stood up and put an online petition and got 100,000 signatures, and the governor backed down. The next issue we saw was then we thought people in New York State who drive don't need to have an eye test. It's like, yeah, I can see. But we're out there with those people. It made absolutely no sense. Someone told me they sent to the governor this large banner that went across the room that said, "Yes, Governor, I can see." and he backed down. He backed down on it. So, there's some issues near and dear to my heart that the governor hasn't backed down on recently, and we've worked very, very hard at it. But I think that this bill has a chance. And do I think that perhaps we're going to need to make some amendments to this bill? I do. And as Jim said, we're not only advocates for animals and for horses, but we care deeply about the farming community that both Jim and I represent. With horse meat, though, horse meat plant opening soon in New Mexico, I think time is of the essence. I think we need to move on this. I think we need to mitigate some of the concerns in our bill. I think we need to get it done, and we need to start advocating within our own conferences. But no one can advocate in our conferences as much as an email or a letter to each of us as individual legislators. It really works. I can tell you, as we stood here today, we talked about how can we get the word out. And I leaned over to Deb Simmonsmeyer, who, by the way, if you're from Columbia County, is my constituent services representative here in the county. And thank you, Deb, for all you do. She worked very, very hard. And I leaned over to her and said, when I was a kid, I rode a horse. We had a horse that my mother never let anyone ride because it was her pet. But I did ride horses a little bit. I'm not real good at it, Jim. But if they could get us some old horses, we could ride them in the parades. We could. And we could advocate for not slaughtering those horses. And what a wonderful opportunity. I'm very serious. What a wonderful opportunity that would be for us to get our messages out to the thousands of people along those parade roads, that these are beautiful, majestic animals that have served us well, and that we shouldn't be slaughtering. And I think as long as we can keep that in the forefront, and Jim and I, by the way, only overlap in one town, the town I live in Half Moon in Saratoga County. So we're completely different districts. So as you advocate and I advocate, and I'm very serious about this, there's a tremendous amount of parades coming up. And my predecessor, Joe Bruno, used to ride his horse all the time. He loved horses. I love horses. I would be willing to learn how to do this. Imagine, this is a challenge, my friend.
I would say I like that because usually we walk behind the horse.
There we go. We'll have others walk behind the horses, not us this time. But I think our legislation is sending a crystal clear message that New York will not tolerate abuse and mistreatment of such beautiful animals. We are in the process, as I said, of amending our legislation, and Jim and I need to get together as to what we're both willing to do and amend. And some of the language may need to be changed. And I love that we're looking at a tax credit. And I think it's wonderful that we're looking at a box on our income tax forms that could be sent to horse rescuing in one fashion or another, whether it's to euthanize the horse, bury the horse. And some of the concerns I'll bring to you that have been brought to us is that animals become neglected and abused if they have no other place to go, which I feel is unconscionable as well, but does happen. So we need to look at that and try to mitigate that so that doesn't occur too. No one wants a horse to be neglected and not fed and left because there isn't an adequate way of disposing of a horse. So please know that we will continue to fight the good fight, Jim and I. I'm thrilled to be here. Susan, thank you for your wonderful invitation. Thank you to each and every one of you for fighting the fight. But please, as Jim said, blow your own horn and get to the rest of our legislators because they need to know that it's not just Jim and I out there looking to have this legislation passed. Thank you very much. Have a great day.